For more analysis, I'm joined now by Raisa Sheynberg with APCO Worldwide. That's a consulting firm that deals in global public affairs and strategic communications. But it's also important to point out that you have policy experience. You were at the White House, National Security Council, so you understand a lot of these issues. You also understand what it's like to work there. So I want to get your thoughts. There's a lot of these questions. Who knew what, when? But the other larger piece, which I'm sure you can probably touch on, is this New York Times piece about Flynn before it stepped down. The headline, turmoil at the National Security Council from top to bottom. So I want to get your thoughts on, having worked there at the White House, what does something like this do to the people that work there day in and day out, morale-wise, but also the who and what and when and all that other piece of it too?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that question, actually, because I think there's, of course, a story about what the White House knew and exactly what General Flynn did, but it's really distressing to me that there's actually no leadership in the National Security Council at the moment, right? You have a commander that was under question the entire time that he was in the job. You have, directors that haven't been put in place. There's just total disarray, and I think that that's a very disconcerting environment where people really don't know how to carry out their jobs.
You mentioned that, and it's interesting. There's another piece I read today. Israeli officials huddled with Flynn, going over the details of this trip, and Netanyahu coming here, and then leaving the White House, and then he was gone a few hours later. Talk to me about the international piece of this, because I don't think people are thinking about that either.
No, and I think it's an important thing to think about. Look, the National Security Advisor really has a role in all of our international relationships. Day in and day out, for instance, Susan Rice, during the course of the Obama administration, she was meeting with ambassadors who were in town. She was meeting with visiting foreign officials. She was preparing for these international visits with the president. There is no interlocutor any longer at the White House, really, to be able to speak to our partners overseas. And I think the thing that I find really troubling about this is that, the world keeps going as this turmoil at the White House is going on. So, there are major events going on, like in North Korea, for instance, or what's happening in Russia, and really nobody is watching over these issues.
You mentioned Russia. This Russia piece, another story in the New York Times, Trump campaign aides said to have had repeated contacts with Russia intelligence officials. We know about the accusations that the Kremlin perhaps leaked this material that had an impact on the election. They deny it. This dossier about Trump, Rex Tillerson has relations with Russia. It just seems like there's more and more of all of this. Is it troubling? Is there a there, and should there be a large investigation into this, and should be more public?
I think an investigation at this point is unavoidable. I don't know how the Congress manages to move forward without doing a full scope investigation of everything that's going on. Whether or not there's any truth to the dossier, whether or not the ties are as deep as some of these, as some of the things that have been revealed allege, I think the American people are owed a full scope investigation. And frankly, I think it's in the interest of the administration to put some of these things behind them and to demonstrate whether or not they really have been operating in good faith or not.
Putting it behind them. Usually when there's a scandal at the White House, you hear the president say, we're going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to make sure that we're going to be transparent, all of that. Donald Trump had the opportunity to do that today. Instead, he said, Michael Flynn's a great guy. The media is terrible. It's the fake media, which seems to be kind of his constant mantra. What does that do in terms of stability for the administration moving forward?
I think it's really hard to say with this administration. I think in any normal administration, you'd probably see even a bigger shakeup than you have now, right? It's very likely that a president would come out and they'd say, okay, well, we've had this one particular bad apple. We're really, sorry about this particular incident. We're going to investigate. We're going to get to the bottom of it. Maybe a few more people would get fired, and they'd be able to move forward. I think with this administration, you really don't know what you're going to see. Trump is incredibly loyal to the people around him. He's demonstrated that he's not willing to actually admit when there's wrongdoing within his own White House. So really, it's anybody's guess about how they're going to handle this.
Does any of this change with the new head, the replacement for Flynn, said to be this vice admiral? Does any of this change with the new face?
I'm not sure it does. I'm really not sure it does. I think the commander-in-chief remains Donald Trump, and I think the people who are closest to him are going to continue advising him the way they have been.
Well, thanks so much for your analysis and coming in and visiting with us.
Thanks so much.
Appreciate it so much.